welcome to the first ever installment in the DracCast. This is the official podcast of Dracula Core and edgy shitposting about comics, which is a page name I don't like, by the way. It's hard to pronounce, and it sounds edgy shitposting about, I don't like that name. A lot of people don't know, by the way, that I'm both of them. But I am. I run both pages. I've run edgy shit posting about comics, I think, since before there were even comic book core pages. I think it predates most of the comic book cores. Maybe not the Star Wars comics ones, but at that point I think it was just Star Wars cores. And then Dracula core I also run. And I don't hide that. I don't bring it up often because it's not really relevant. But anyway, this is the shared podcast of both. And it's called DracCast because it's funnier. I was going to say, the reason that the page is called Edgy Shit Posting About Comics is that it was a play on a page called Edgy Shit Posting About Rap Music that I don't even think is called that anymore. I think they changed their name. I don't even know if that page exists anymore. But I used to follow them. They posted about hip-hop stuff. Anyway, so the original point for this show, as I had pitched it to people and to myself, was that this was going to be a podcast about vampire films and vampire media in general. And I realized that while I do want to put a focus on vampire movies and vampire media, I don't want to only do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on other things as well, but they're not going to be. I want to keep them all feeling right for this show. So this first episode is a prime example. This isn't a vampire film, but this is a film that I think if you like vampire movies, you probably also like this. This is a horror movie, and that's how I'm justifying it to myself. Really, I just want to talk about Darkman, but it is also a thing where it's it's a horror movie. So that's also worth noting. Anyway, this is the first episode of this show. Sorry, I'm really unorganized here. This is the first episode. I'm allowed to be. I'm allowed to be unorganized here. So, and it is just me for now. I will probably have guests as the show goes on, but at the moment, it's just me. So, let's talk a little bit about the movie Darkman. Darkman is a movie that I'm gonna guess a lot of people probably don't even know about. A lot of people who follow me might not even know about. And if you do, maybe you do know Darkman. I don't know. I think it's gotten more buzz recently because I know Red Letter Media did a video on it, which I haven't seen. I do watch Red Letter Media, but I don't watch all their videos. I just watch some of them, and I haven't seen that one. Generally, I mostly watch not Half in the Bag. I do watch Half in the Bag, but I mostly watch Best of the Worst and Wheel of the Worst. That's really what I like with them that they do. So I haven't seen the review of Darkman. I do want to, though. I'll probably watch that at some point. Mostly I didn't watch it because I didn't want to just repeat things they said. Or accidentally just copy anything they say. So I didn't watch it. And they are also, they know more about movies than I do. So to be fair, this is probably going to be pretty different than anything they would say on their show. I have been rambling for almost 5 minutes, so I'm going to talk about the actual movie now. So Darkman is a film by Sam Raimi. Most people know Sam Raimi for, of course, the Spider-Man trilogy, the original 3 Spider-Man movies, which are the best Spider-Man movies, without a doubt. Those are the best Spider-Man movies. I don't hate all the other ones, but I don't like most of the other ones. And honestly, Spider-Man 3 is not very good, but it's actually probably the one I've seen the most because I owned it as a kid on DVD. Because I was a kid and I thought Venom was cool. Anyway, Darkman is a movie he made. Oh, and of course, Sam Raimi's also directed an MCU movie. He directed Multiverse of Madness, which most people don't like, and most people are wrong, because Multiverse of Madness is really good. And a lot of the reasons people don't like it are actually the reasons it's good, and I'm going to stand by that. That's not the focus of this podcast, but I just want to mention that Multiverse of Madness is one of the better MCU movies of the last while, which I mean isn't saying much. Most of the MCU movies are kind of bad now. I don't like those. I'm not an MCU person in general. Anyway, and then of course he also directed Evil Dead, which is a great trilogy of films. And also the television series, although he didn't direct that. And we're getting another Evil Dead, I just remembered, which he's also not involved in. But that is coming out. I don't think he's involved with that. I don't know. Maybe he is. I don't know. I haven't looked at it too much. Anyway, Darkman is a movie that he made prior to prior to Spider-Man. It's from 1990, and one thing about Darkman that's worth noting is that it's a film that's been categorized a couple different ways. Because some people do consider it a horror film. You'll see stuff about it on horror subreddits and horror fan pages and stuff online. Darkman is a movie that did surprisingly well. It was critically, well received. It has an 84 on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's largely forgotten, which is unfortunate. Darkman, again, it's kind of a superhero movie, kind of a horror movie, and I look at it as kind of neither, which I think Sam Raimi kind of also would agree with. So the concept with Darkman is essentially that Sam Raimi had tried to make a film based on The Shadow. And I like The Shadow. The Shadow, of course, being the... what's it called? He's like a mystery man, forerunner of superhero kind of characters. And then he also sort of is a superhero himself. There is a Shadow film with Alec Baldwin. I'll admit I haven't seen it. But I have read some Shadow comics. And obviously the Shadow radio plays, which are from when my grandfather was a little kid and which he listened to when he was little. I have also listened to because they're mostly all pretty easy to find online. I recommend them. They're a lot of fun. They hold up surprisingly well for something from the fucking 1930s. Sam Raimi had tried to get the rights to The Shadow, and he couldn't do it. So he decided to make his own superhero named Darkman. And Darkman is based, I guess, on a short story that he had written previously that was supposed to be like an homage to a Universal horror film. And this film, you can really tell that this is a horror, like based on a Universal horror film. There's numerous homages to it, and I'll kind of talk about that as this goes on. But I guess, so this was a 30-page short story called The Darkman, and then Raimi redid it as a treatment for a film. I read somewhere that it took about 6 months for them to get it greenlit, and he'd been working on it that whole time. So he was like actively kind of working on the film before it was greenlit, probably doing just writing and maybe some designs. I don't know. This film came out. I mean, it's only a year after Batman, the Tim Burton Batman, and it feels so different. Like it is. this is a film that it's clearly made by someone who has similar sensibilities in a way to Tim Burton, but it is absolutely so different, and I think they both just sort of take similar inspirations in completely different directions. I kind of want to talk about that. But the basic premise with Darkman is it stars Liam Neeson, who was already pretty famous at the time, not anywhere near as he is now, but he's already a well-known guy. And so his character is Peyton Westlake, who is a scientist who is working on this technology that's essentially like 3D printing, but for skin. And the idea with it is that I think, from what I remember, it's that they're going to replace. It's like to give skin to people who have like lost their skin in accidents, which is foreshadowing. Because what happens is that Liam Neeson, who's Peyton Westlake, whose girlfriend is Frances McDormand, who's an attorney, she leaves a paper with him basically showing that her boss, who's a real estate kind of mogul, has been doing dealings with the mob. The mob break into Liam Neeson's lab. They kill his lab partner, lab assistant, and they blow him up in a really ridiculous, silly way, which is that they leave a lighter. I can't believe this is in the movie. They leave a lighter on a counter, and they leave one of those little bird dipper things where you put the water in and the bird's head dips down. And they're next to a bunch of like gas canisters, and so the idea is that when the bird dipper thing hits the lighter, the building will explode. That's not how those things work. They usually dip less, from what I understand, the longer it goes on, because there's less water. It's ridiculous. It's such a stupid idea. I don't know why that's in there. Like that. It comes back, like it's used multiple times. It's dumb every time. That's one of the only, legitimately one of my only complaints about this film, is that is like so silly. And I listen, it's not like there's a lot of suspension of disbelief required with this film, and we'll get to that. And most of that's fine, but that to me was like, that's dumb. I don't like that one. That's just a personal taste thing. Other people might like that, but who cares? Whatever. It's not a big deal. So the building explodes. Liam Neeson as Dr. Peyton Westlake. I'm going to keep making that mistake, but I'll just use both names. Who cares? He gets blowed up. He gets exploded. And there's a really great shot of him kind of flying into the air going, ah! It's incredibly rainy. It's the most rainy thing I've ever seen. It's also, like, very silly, which is good, because, I mean, a lot of Sam Raimi movies have sort of a silliness to them. But in a good way. I like Sam Raimi. Like I said, there's a silliness to it. There's some camp. They're honestly pretty camp movies in a good way. I mean that in like the nicest way possible. Sam Raimi is one of my favorite filmmakers, hands down. So Darkman is created because these hospital workers find his body in the river, and they dig it out, and they do surgery on him. They did surgery on a grate, and he's all burned up. And what they do is they sever like a nerve in his neck, which is a real nerve, to make it so he won't feel pain, because he's obviously in intense pain. Or he would be, because all of his skin is burned off. He basically looks like a skeleton with like some crispiness on him. He looks real fucked up. and they sever this nerve so that he won't feel the pain. But because there's no pain, the adrenaline that he would be getting from like feeling pain is all going directly into his brain and stuff, which means that he has like enhanced strength and stuff, like mildly enhanced strength. But he also feels extreme negative emotions. So isolation, sadness, anger, and that is important in the film. And he escapes from the hospital. One of the hospital workers is actually played by John Landis, which is really fun. Even though John Landis is a real bastard, it's still really funny that he's there. And there's a lot of like little cameos like that. So anyway, Peyton Westlake escapes, and he seeks to get revenge on the people who did this to him, reunite with his girlfriend, and save the world, I guess. Not really. He doesn't really want to save the world. Which is one of the best things about this film, is that this film is ultimately more of a film about... It's really not a superhero origin movie. It's really kind of a monster movie, which is what Sam Raimi is so good at. Like all of his Spider-Man movies, the thing that's so brilliant about all of those movies is that they're fucking scary. Like every villain origin in all of those movies, not all of them maybe, but most of them are done like horror movies, especially that Doc Ock scene from Spider-Man 2, which is incredible. And also, that was like, I saw that movie really young, and I have no memory of being scared by any of that, so I don't know. But it's great. What I think is excellent about Raimi is that he approaches everything with a horror movie mentality, including like a lot of his superhero works, yeah, but also he did a film called Oz the Great and Powerful, which, I should review that at some point. That is, I believe, a Disney film. Yeah, Oz the Great and Powerful. Oz the Great and Powerful is a terrible movie, from what I remember. It's not, well, I don't know about terrible. It's not very good, though. It's not very good. It's got good stuff in it. I don't know why I said it was terrible. It's really not, but it's not very good. It's a silly, silly, silly movie. Very silly movie. That's supposed to be like an origin story for the Wizard of Oz, and he is played, of course, by James Franco. And yeah, it's not a movie I particularly care for. I'd have to go back to it. Maybe it's quite good in retrospect. I don't know. But I remember it being... It feels like a Tim Burton movie more than it feels like a Sam Raimi movie, from what I remember. It really does, from what I remember, feel like basically that Disney wanted to do another like Alice in Wonderland, like they had with Tim Burton, but they just got Sam Raimi to do Wizard of Oz. I don't know. I'm going to put that on the list of things to talk about, because that's also a movie that I feel like I can justify doing on this show, because it's got enough weird, goofy horror stuff, which is my favorite kind of horror, is the weird, goofy horror stuff. So one of the things about this that I really enjoyed as well... What was I talking about? Jesus. Okay. One thing about Darkman is that Raimi approaches everything with a sense of like a horror mindset, and really kind of looks at the terrifying elements of these characters. So in the Spider-Man trilogy, he doesn't look at Spider-Man that way, but everyone else is looked at that way. Green Goblin, is looked at through a horror lens, more of a psychological horror lens than anything else. Doc Ock is a body horror thing and feels like a body horror thing. The way that he like screams when he's like, no, it's all super Universal Monsters inspired. Like it feels like Raimi just loves that stuff, and you can really see it here. Because, from what I understand, this film didn't start life as a superhero movie. Raimi had written this short story years earlier as like a horror story, and retooled it for a film. But even then, as he's making the film, it became more of a superhero thing. I think particularly when those shadow influences came in. So I do want to just note a couple of things I really like to be from that perspective. The Shadow himself has a great design with the slouch hat and the trench coat and stuff, and Darkman takes all of that. Darkman has those things, but what I think is great about Darkman's design is it's so much more frightening. Right? He doesn't have a face. He doesn't have any of this. He doesn't have lips. He wears bandages. And the slouch hat and the trench coat feel like they're there just to cover up how horrific he is. It's not a costume. I don't think Darkman thinks of himself as a superhero. And I think ultimately the film is sort of deconstructing... Not superheroes. This isn't like a deconstructive superhero film, I don't think. But it's... I don't know. It's almost more of a deconstruction of like those early Mystery Men characters. Maybe not a deconstruction, but just like a dark take. Because of, well, the ending of the movie, which I'm not going to get into right now. Because I don't want to spoil it, really, at this point. Because I didn't know it going into the film. And it caught me off guard, and I really liked it. I really, really liked that element. So, yeah. One thing I really like about Darkman's design as well is how reminiscent it is of a number of characters. You can tell it's a Universal horror riff because he looks like the Invisible Man and a little bit like the Mummy, obviously, because bandages, but he looks more like the Invisible Man. But I think all together, the vibe isn't Invisible Man, it's Phantom of the Opera. Which is weird because the Phantom of the Opera doesn't dress like that in any version I can think of. And I should note that the Phantom of the Opera is a really silly property. I'm not a Phantom of the Opera fan, but I'm not a Phantom of the Opera hater either. I come from a family of absolute Phantom of the Opera ops. Phantom of the Opera, the ops. They hate that musical and that story. And I'm not like that. I think Phantom of the Opera is kind of sick. In a good way, but I also don't love it. I need to. That's another thing I'll probably review at some point. But I think the Phantom of the Opera is cool. I don't love everything about it, but it's pretty cool. And this feels like an homage, really, to that. And I know Raimi acknowledged that. And it's super obvious that is like an influence on it. And I almost look at this more as like a Phantom of the Opera thing than as a like a superhero thing. And you know, the Phantom of the Opera itself has I think sort of elements of superhero fiction in it. You know, it's a... And I should note that when Raimi made this movie, or when this movie came out, the musical Phantom of the Opera by Andrew Lloyd Webber, which is an adaptation of an original novel by Gaston Leroux, that had only been out for a few years. And so I think, and it was a huge hit, of course. The Phantom of the Opera is a huge musical. It's the longest running show in Broadway history. It's done over 10,000 performances, which is more than any other Broadway show. Although it's closing. Oh, I didn't know that. I just looked at this. It's actually closing in April. So that's kind of interesting. But it's been on since '86. That's a long fucking time. Anyway, this isn't a Broadway podcast. I bet those exist. I don't. That definitely exists. I take it back 1,000%. There are Broadway podcasts. Anyway, the Phantom of the Opera. He's a little bit like a superhero in a couple of ways. He has a secret lair. He is super good at he's a really talented guy. He wears a mask, and he uses like gadgets and technology. The difference is that the Phantom of the Opera uses all those things to basically just like fuck with people and make them leave him alone. The Phantom of the Opera's he's kind of a loser. And Darkman isn't. Like Peyton Westlake is not a loser. This guy is real cool. He has he has a girlfriend he loves, and she's probably gonna marry him. That's the whole thing. He proposes to her in the beginning of the movie. But the accident happens before she can give him an answer because she doesn't know if she wants to marry him. And Peyton Westlake doesn't have gadgets in the traditional sense. He doesn't have batarangs. He doesn't have like all of the pyrotechnics and stuff that the Phantom of the Opera has. He doesn't have any of that stuff. He doesn't even have like a gun in the way that like the Shadow does. What he does have though is he has a machine that he built with his the skin machine, this machine that makes noses and ears and eyeballs. Not eyeballs. It doesn't make eyeballs. It makes like noses and ears and chins and all that stuff. And he can use that technology to build faces that he can wear around. And at first he can only make other people's faces, but eventually he figures out how to make one of his own face. So he can walk around as Liam Neeson and just like seems normal. But the catch is that he can only be out in the sunlight with that for 99 minutes at most. And if he's out in the sunlight for 99 minutes, for more than 99 minutes, all of his skin falls off in a really grotesque way. And so that's why he's Darkman. He's in the dark. I almost said Nightman for a second, which is a thing from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and also a TV show from what I'm aware of. I've never seen it, but Charlton Posting has posted stuff about the Darkman, or the Nightman show, so I guess it's also real. Anyway, one thing I want to say also about this is that it has a lot of really cool kind of casting and production kind of facts. Obviously, Liam Neeson is the lead. I'm not a big Liam Neeson fan. I don't have like a strong like connection to Liam Neeson. I think he's fine as an actor. I think that his turn towards doing like Taken, those kind of like badass action hero movies, has been like kind of lame. Because Liam Neeson is like 70 years old, and I think that I'm not saying an old guy can't do movies like that, but it feels there's a thing that I think certain Hollywood actors do, certain male Hollywood actors do, and Charlize Theron also did it. So I guess also her, where they reach a certain point in their career where they've done a bunch of like real movies, like serious movies. They've done a couple action things maybe, but they've mostly done like serious movies. And they decide that they don't want to anymore, and they just want to make bad movies, like garbage schlock forever. And so, like, Liam Neeson's done that. Charlize Theron has done that. Denzel Washington kind of did it, although I think he has gone back now to making like real movies. Michael B. Jordan actually has jumped right to that. He's not even very old. He's I don't know how old Michael B. Jordan is, but he's instantly jumped to that stage of his career. And I don't actually mean it so much as like a diss to those guys. Particularly Charlize Theron, who I think is pretty good at doing that. Like, even when it's an absolute train wreck garbage fest of a film, it's like, okay, but it's cool that Charlize is like having fun. I like Charlize Theron in general. I like most of those people in general. And Liam Neeson, I like him in general. I'm not a big fan, but he's, when he hits, he hits. He do miss, but sometimes he hits, and when he hits, he hits. And this is a hit. I think Liam Neeson's really good in this movie. His accent's not very good. He occasionally just starts having an Irish accent again, which is funny. But he does mostly at least try to do an American accent. And one thing I'll say about the American accent, as someone who doesn't have one, as you may have noticed, is that the Irish accent and the American accent are surprisingly similar. And I think Liam Neeson's actually a really good example of that, because in a lot of his movies, he kind of speaks between the two, sort of the Irish equivalent of the transatlantic accent. And it really just sounds like kind of both at the same time. And so there's a lot of points where like you're just like, yeah, it's just what Liam Neeson talks like. And I've met people who talk like that too. I have a lot of family members who have accents like that, actually, that are sort of between a sort of a North American English and an Irish accent, just because of where I'm from. It's interesting because I'm not Irish. I'm not of significant Irish descent that I'm aware of. But anyway, regardless, so Liam Neeson, obviously, Darkman, was not written for Darkman. This was written for Bruce Campbell, who I like Bruce Campbell, but his wouldn't have been good. As Bruce Campbell couldn't do this part. Bruce Campbell isn't a serious actor. Bruce Campbell really does best at comedy. That's kind of all he does. That's good. Bruce Campbell, I think, has transitioned into being a comedic actor more than anything else. I think he has gotten really good at it too. I think his Evil Dead performances, Army of Darkness, and I think he's great in Army of Darkness. All of his cameos in the Spider-Man movies are hilarious, and in Multiverse of Madness. Yeah, I mean, Bruce Campbell is like he's great. I love Bruce Campbell, obviously. Who doesn't? But he can't be Darkman. Like, he's not good enough of he can't bring pathos to it. Liam Neeson is already like struggling to do it. I'm going to be real with you. Oh, yeah, I think he's great, but like, I don't know if Liam Neeson is fully at that level. Now, the other actors who were considered for the role, this is fun, Gary Oldman and Bill Paxton. Gary Oldman and Bill Paxton probably also might have done a good job with this, to be honest with you. I'm also not a big fan of Gary Oldman, surprisingly, because he played Dracula. I'm not a big Gary Oldman guy. I don't hate Gary Oldman. I think he does a good job sometimes, but I think he's a little bit overrated as an actor. I have hot takes about performers, but I do think that this might have been a good... I think he could have done this. I really do. But I am happy it's Liam Neeson. I think Liam Neeson is probably, of those options, the best one to do it. And then Bill Paxton, I don't know what he would have even been like in this role. It's hard to imagine him in it, just like it is with Bruce Campbell. And then Frances McDormand, Frances McDormand doesn't want to do a lot of movies like this. Frances McDormand said about this character, "This is the first bimbo I've played." Which I'm going to be real. I don't think Julie Hastings, who's the character, I don't think she's a bimbo. She's an attorney. I don't think she's like Frances McDormand in this movie. She's not like particularly sexualized, and I don't think the character is particularly sexual. I think that's a weird thing for Frances McDormand to say. No offense to Frances McDormand, who is a great actress, but it's weird that she said that. Anyway, apparently also Frances McDormand quite enjoyed doing this movie, which is good to know. I like that. It's good to know that she had fun making this silly science fiction superhero horror movie before doing like a bunch of movies she won Oscars for. And Larry Drake is Durant, who's one of the main villains. Who I don't really know much about Larry Drake. He was in, I guess, L.A. Law. I've never seen that. But he's good in this. Everyone in this is good. One of my favorite moments in this or favorite sort of appearances in this is Ted Raimi, who is Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell's brother. No, yeah, he's Bruce Campbell's brother, but he happens to have the same name as Sam Raimi. No, it's Sam Raimi's brother. He's Sam Raimi's brother, Ted Raimi. He's in Spider-Man. He's in all of the Spider-Man movies. I think he's the originals. He's what is that character's name that he plays? Jeez. He's like an actual character in them. Ted Raimi plays Ted Hoffman in the Spider-Man movies. Yeah, and he's in other non-Sam Raimi stuff too. Like he's an actual actor. He's in like Twin Peaks and stuff. I liked Ted Raimi. He's a character actor, and Ted Raimi's great in this. He plays one of the villain mobster characters, and interestingly, the film heavily implies. And when I saw this, I was like, I must be reading into it. I looked it up. Everyone agrees this is in the film. That Ted Raimi's character and Durant, the mob boss, are clearly either a gay couple or just like into each other. It's kind of unclear, but it's there. It's not even subtextual. Like it's pretty well textual that it really does feel like the two of them are either interested in each other or just in a relationship, which is really cool. It's a weird choice to make, but I think it's fun. And speaking of which, so this movie has fucking 5 screenwriters, if I'm correct. There's like 5 screenwriters for this film. Sam Raimi obviously is one of them, as is Ivan Raimi, who I think must be Sam Raimi's other brother. Just a second here. Yeah, there's just so many writers on this film, which is weird because so it's a screenplay by Chuck Ferrer, Sam Raimi, Ivan Raimi, Daniel Golden, and Josh Golden. But I've also heard tell that the Coen brothers did ghostwrite parts of this, or punched it up a little bit, maybe some of the dialogue, which is really cool if it's true. I don't know, I don't have evidence for that, but I did read it while I was looking up stuff about this film, doing research, but I couldn't find an original source for it. And of course, Joel Coen is married to Frances McDormand, so that's pretty cool too. Anyway, this movie also has what was I going to say? This movie has a lot of really great moments. There's some good lines in this movie. One of Darkman's whole end speech that he gives is awesome. As is, he's like not a one-liner because it's not funny, But he has a line at the end that is just so badass. And like, I really don't want to spoil this. With a lot of these movies that I talk about, I probably will spoil them. I kind of don't want to spoil Darkman, honestly, just because I know so many people haven't seen it. So don't expect that these are all going to be spoiler-free reviews. But honestly, with this one, I'm just not going to spoil Darkman. Because it really is a movie you should watch not knowing much about it, which is what happened with me. Which is rare for me. I don't get to do that a lot, especially in the movie from before I was born. But yeah, one thing I should also note is Darkman isn't on any streaming services that I'm aware of, at least not where I live. and so I actually had to buy this movie physically on Blu-ray, and I did that because I kind of collect physical copies of films. It's a fun thing to collect. It's like the only thing I collect, really, because I don't know. It's fun to have physical copies of movies. It's a little bit more reliable. You don't have to worry about something being taken off streaming service. You don't have to worry about whether something's on a streaming service, whether you're subscribed to that streaming service. Oh, it's on a streaming service in another country. I have to get my VPN working, yada yada. Like I don't want to do any of that. So it's nice to have a physical copy, and also because no one buys physical copies of films anymore, you can get a lot of films for quite inexpensive prices. The collection started because I was at a used electronics store with a friend, and they had this particular used electronics store. They had deals on, you could buy 10 used DVDs for $10. So it was $1 per DVD when you bought them all together, which is sick. So I bought a bunch of movies there. This was not one of them because I bought this on Blu-ray, and I bought this on Blu-ray when I was on vacation, and I went to a bigger city that had better stores to buy things at. Anyway, I was like, oh, I should watch Darkman. I'd never seen it. But what's interesting is that they had two ways I could buy this movie. They had Darkman just on its own, and then they had the Darkman trilogy, which I didn't at the time know, because I'd never seen the movie, that Darkman had any sequels. Darkman has 2 sequels, which are called Darkman 2: The Return of Durant and Die Darkman Die, which are great titles. Not really. I think they're kind of not great, but they're fun. I don't hate those. But one thing that's kind of cool about that is that there's another Universal horror connection here, which is that in the sequels, Liam Neeson did not return because he was like he's probably making like Schindler's List or something. He's like in like other movies, but they replaced him with Arnold Vosloo, who isn't a household name. But Arnold Vosloo played Imhotep in The Mummy, and The Mummy Returns, the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies, which are of course Universal horror films, which people forget a lot, but they are. And Arnold Vosloo I really like Arnold Vosloo. I saw him in a movie recently that I had never heard of that I would also recommend. This is a episode. This is a movie that's not going to get an episode of the show, but it is it is a recommendation for sure if you're in the right mood for it. Which is the movie Steel Dawn, which is a Patrick Swayze film that is on Tubi that was made shockingly after Patrick Swayze was already kind of famous, and it was filmed in like Gambia or something like that. It's like it was filmed in Africa, and it's a post-apocalyptic film where, but it's also Shane. It's like a remake of Shane set in the future, but it's a future where like no one has guns anymore. So they have like cars and stuff. It's like Mad Max, but everyone has swords. And Patrick Swayze has this sick fucking sword that's made out of like corrugated sheet metal because it's the future, and it is so sick. The movie is really bad, but it has an incredibly awesome opening of Patrick Swayze just fighting like a bunch of dudes. It's so sick. The rest of the movie is pretty boring, but Arnold Vosloo is in that film, and he is barely in it. But he has a significant role, but he's not in the movie much. He's just in like a couple of scenes. But that was fun too. That's before this, and it's also not relevant. But yeah, Arnold Vosloo is in the sequels to Darkman. Now I own them, obviously. I haven't watched them yet though. I do plan to watch the Darkman sequels. I don't know if they're any good. They're probably not good, but they are movies that exist and that I own. So of course I'm going to watch them. I just haven't yet because I kind of wanted to just live with this one. I only watched this the other day, but I really liked it. This is a great film. And like I said, I bought it before I watched it because there was no other way to watch it, and that I knew of. And I was like, you know what? It wasn't that much. It was cheaper to get the trilogy, was my point that I was originally going to make. It's cheaper to get the trilogy than it was to just buy the original, which is really weird to me. So I just bought the trilogy on Blu-ray. This is like a very genuine recommendation. Like when I make jokes, like when I was making jokes about like, this is like the best movie ever. That's not true, but it is like that's not a joke. Like it's not a Morbius thing. Like this really is a fucking awesome movie that you should check out. Like this is a really terrific film. And I mean, like I said, it was pretty well received by critics way before superhero fatigue. This is 1990, so we've really just had at this point all the made-for-TV stuff, the Christopher Reeves Superman, 60s Batman, and the 60s Batman movie, I should say, and then the 89 Batman as like theatrical superhero films. And again, this also doesn't feel like a superhero movie. I mean, a lot of people looked at this as a horror film, I think, when it came out, and I do see it pop up in horror movie circles more often than I see it, I think, pop up in superhero circles. And especially the place I really see people bring it up is in like pulp hero circles, like places, which is a thing that I like. I like The Shadow and The Spider, who I haven't checked out as much as I should, but I need to check out more Spider stuff because that is just one of the best costumes I've ever seen. And I'll probably do an episode talking about some of those characters who I like in a later episode, especially because a lot of them have interacted with vampires just in some way or another, being tied into vampires or even just Dracula himself. But this film really does fill that it fits in there. It slots in there better than it slots into like anything else. And it's a shame that this wasn't as big a thing as it could have been. Because, so from what I understand, Universal didn't even know, I read this, Universal didn't even know they owned the rights to the licensing for this, the toys. Because some company contacted them about making toys for it. And they were like, we own that? We own the toy rights for Darkman? Like, they, I think, completely neglected this as a franchise because they just didn't, like, get it. And it wasn't a big hit. I think it made money. Like, it wasn't a flop. But it made, it was like a meager success. And then, of course, Sam Raimi, like, would go on to do fucking Spider-Man, which obviously was like a big hit. And it had Chad Kroeger in the and they say that a hero. That's what this movie missed. It should have had Chad Kroeger. And they say that a dark man can save us. Hey, I want to be a dark man. Yeah! Just do some Nickelback about Darkman. Look at this photograph, and he's holding up the picture of Peyton and and Julie that Darkman keeps looking at, like, crying. That's the other thing I liked about this movie is the idea that, like, they set up that Peyton Westlake will have all of these, like, super heightened emotions because of the accident, and they actually use it, and that's something I love. I love that, like, they actually use that to their advantage. They act like he actually is constantly in a state of, like, anger or rage or sadness. He cries a lot in this movie. He's, like, scared to talk to people. He just like me for real. No. But I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a neat idea, and ultimately I think is sort of part of the tragic purpose and point of the film, right? Is that Darkman is sort of a superhero, is an avenger and a vigilante because of that, right? The film ends in a place, like, there's multiple points in the film where he goes further than he needs to, in a very, like, Shadow or Spider way, and it's great because it's essentially saying that in order to be a superhero or like a vigilante mystery man, because I don't really think of these as, like, traditional superhero characters, you kind of have to have a weird emotional state, right? I think that, like, I once heard Warren Ellis, who obviously is not a guy that I have a huge amount of admiration for as a person, but I do like a lot as a writer. Warren Ellis said he wrote a trilogy of comics. He wrote Super God, Black Summer, and I don't remember the other one. No Hero or Bad Hero or some shit like that. I never read it. I read Super God. That's the only one. I read Super God. But I never read the other two. And they're only, like, thematic trilogies. But the way he put it was that one was about superheroes. What if superheroes weren't human enough? What if they were too human? And then what if superheroes thought that they were above humans but weren't? Which is well-treaded territory. I didn't think Super Gods was great. Or Super God, sorry. I think Super Gods is Grant Morrison's novel or nonfiction book. I don't know. Listen, I didn't like the one I read. I thought it was for Warren Ellis. It was a bit disappointing. And obviously, Watchmen is a take. This is when you're remembering that I'm also into Skippo comics. But Watchmen, I think, is also dealing with those similar themes, but one that these things don't often deal with enough, or at least in the same way that this does, is the superhero as horror, and not the superhero as, like, a monster in the sense that, like, they're scary and they're going to kill you, but more in the sense of, like, in order to be a superhero, you kind of have to be angry all the time. You kind of have to be a fucked up, weird guy. And this is cool because, again, I don't really, like, this is more of a sort of proto superhero kind of thing, like the Shadow or the Spider or something like that. And so what this is really is it feels like playing with those tropes in a pseudo deconstructive way. Again, I don't think this is a full deconstruction, but I think it's really good. Is what it is. Anyway, I'm not going to try to go on for too much longer. Like I said, I don't want to spoil this particular film because I wouldn't have wanted it spoiled for me, and I have friends who are probably going to listen to this who haven't seen the movie. Yeah, no, I should note though, like, there are a lot of great little nuggets of fun that I haven't talked about. Like I said, there's some stuff Darkman says and does at the end that I love. There's some cameos that I didn't want to give away because they're a little bit more relevant to the plot. And obviously I haven't seen the sequels yet, although if I watch them and I think they're worth talking about, I might talk about them. Probably not. They probably won't have their own episode. But, And then another thing about Darkman I do want to mention is that Darkman, besides having 2 sequels, also has something of a presence in comics. Kurt Busiek wrote a Darkman comic book after the first film came out, and then also I think co-wrote a crossover between Darkman and Army of Darkness, where Ash and Darkman meet. Because Ash Williams is just a character that can cross over with anything. They like the Army of Darkness and Evil Dead can just meet anything, and it feels right. I honestly wish there was more to Darkman than that, because I often, when you see people talk about Darkman now, they talk about Darkman in relation to Evil Dead. It's people saying that they want Darkman as a character in the Evil Dead game, which I haven't played yet, but I intend to. People saying that they want him more to be tied into that mythology. And as much as I think it's really cool that they crossed over, and I wouldn't be opposed to like him appearing in that video game, I kind of want Darkman to just have more shit. I want a Darkman like novels. I want Darkman comics. I want Darkman lunchboxes. I want Darkman to be a fucking thing. Like the way that Todd McFarlane wanted Spawn to be a thing, and he succeeded. I want that for Darkman, a character I didn't even create, who's from like 30, like over 30 years ago. Man, Jesus, that's a long time ago. I can't believe 1990 is that long ago. I feel like an old man, and I'm in my 20s. But I do have good news, which is I think it was about 10 months ago I saw some news, and I looked it up, and so it is from around then. But I remember seeing some stuff about it when it first. There were some inklings. I hadn't even seen the film yet. That Sam Raimi has said that he has been approached by Universal about making another Darkman movie. And not only that, reportedly, from what I read, Liam Neeson said he would be interested to do kind of a legacy film for Darkman, which is really cool. And I think Darkman deserves another shot. I think old man Darkman isn't what I want. But, if they did it, I wouldn't be mad. Honestly, I don't think you would need to keep Liam Neeson. Although, obviously, you can. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be awesome if Liam Neeson came back for this. Frances McDormand probably wouldn't. Although if she did, that would also be really cool. Even if it's just for like a small role. No, I think that would be great, actually. I do kind of want that original cast, but honestly, Darkman is a character you can recast because he doesn't have a face, and he just puts on other people's faces. Like, I think that's probably how they do Ronald Vosloo in the sequels. Like, I haven't seen them yet, but I'd imagine that's what they use as their justification for it. And I think that that's a perfect conceit, and you just sort of have to accept the voice. They do address the voice in the original film, I should note. They do address briefly that he has to practice doing other people's voices, but it's silly just to the extent to which he's able to do it. Also, he doesn't have lips, so he shouldn't even really be able to talk anyway. There's a lot of like sort of scientific inaccuracies with this film, but it's fucking Darkman. Who cares? And one thing I do want to note is that if you go on a lot of like circles of the internet, this is like a movie that everyone kind of likes. Horror nerds like it, nerds like it, and like film bros like it. If you go on like kind of snootier parts of like film, not snooty, I should not like people who like maybe, I don't know. Not everyone likes this movie. I don't know if like Jim Jarmusch would like this movie. Maybe he would. I don't know. I bet David Lynch would like this movie, weirdly. But yeah, but if you go in like movie Circle Jerk or something like that, like somewhere where they're going to be a little bit more cynical about mainstream film, those guys are all like, yeah, this movie rocks. Like anyone who's seen Darkman, they're like, yeah, Darkman's awesome. So yeah, Darkman's awesome. And I don't like to call things awesome. I think it's like played out. It's silly. It makes me, it's awesome, bro. Crazy. But like sometimes something is just fills you with awe. And this is like one of those things. Oh man, I have so much more to talk about. I don't want this to be too long though. like I just noticed that Liam Neeson plays Darkman, who is inspired by the Shadow, and of course Liam Neeson also plays the man who mentors Batman in Batman Begins, who he plays. I mean, Liam Neeson is Henry Duquesne. I mean, he's Ra's al Ghul. Spoilers for Batman Begins, I guess, but he's actually Ra's al Ghul. But I think that according to if I remember correctly, the Scott Snyder Batman Shadow crossover, or Shadow Batman, whichever one it was, established that Henry Duquesne is the Shadow, at least in the continuity of that particular series. So that's pretty cool, because it's sort of like this is sort of like the Shadow being played by the guy who mentored Batman. I mean, it's not perfect. Listen, it's a stretch, I know that, but it's just a fun observation to note that Darkman kind of trained Batman in a roundabout sense. Oh, and this is going to be a little longer than I thought, but that's okay. What I was going to say about how this is very different than Burton's Batman, I said that way back at the beginning of this, is that Burton, I think, takes those gothic aesthetics and builds a world around them, right? He builds a fictional vision of a city that's out of time, it's out of place, it's its own vision of a world. Gotham in that doesn't seem to take place in any particular time or part of America, or even necessarily in America. It's just its own world. And Raimi doesn't do that. He takes the similar sort of sensibilities of like gothic horror and superheroes and pulp and all that stuff, but he grounds it in reality, but he applies those aesthetics to our world instead of building an entire world out of that. So this movie is really gloomy and dark looking and drab, and it also has a Danny Elfman soundtrack as well. Like, this also has Danny Elfman, but it's super it also feels like an actual city from the 90s. Like, it's not like a made up place. It doesn't feel like a made up place. And that's really cool too. I mean, it's just two approaches to that same mentality. So anyway, this has been the first episode of the DracCast. This is just a thing I'm doing for fun right now. This show will probably get better as it goes on. This isn't very organized, I'm aware, but I'm doing this because I like talking about things, and I don't have many people to talk to at the moment. Not in a sad way. I don't want people to feel bad for me. I'm having a good time with my life, but I just, I like to share my thoughts with people about things that other people might care about that people around me don't necessarily care about, at least not to the extent that they want to listen to an hour and 5-minute podcast about it. So let me know if people want me to do more of this in particular. I'm going to do more of it anyway, whether you want me to or not, because I don't really care what other people think. But if you have suggestions on things I should do, or new ideas for ways I can improve this, let me know. I'm all ears. I mean, if you're wrong, I'm going to come to your house and fight you. I'm happy to talk to people about this. I love the sound of my own voice. And anyway, so for this should be going out soon. I'm going to try to have this done within the next couple days and out after I'm recording this. Yeah, this is just the first episode, but I already know what's coming next. I don't want to give anything away. It's a bit of a surprise. I do want to note that I'm going to not just do movies, although movies will probably be the focus. And there'll probably be movies and stuff that there's things I really like that I'm not going to do episodes on. Probably won't do an episode on Midnight Mass. Because I love Midnight Mass. Midnight Mass is like one of my favorite things ever. I love that series so much. But I don't want to talk about it because it's a thing I don't want to. I really don't want to spoil, because that's an entirely thing you don't want to have spoiled for you, in my opinion. And also just because I don't know if I have enough to say about it other than, oh, this part was really cool and this part was really cool and you know, this is the part where this happens, and like, yeah, I don't have much to say about that. Whereas with Darkman, I did a lot of that, but I mean, ultimately, we're talking about like things that I liked and why I liked them, or what I thought was cool about them, and the making of the film. So that's really what's more interesting to me. Also, I'm going to talk about some bad movies and stuff too, not just stuff I like. Like the thing that I'm not the next thing I'm doing, but I'm planning. I have some stuff planned that's stuff I really don't care for, and some of it might piss people off, just as a heads up. But you can't cancel me. You can't silence the truth.